Well, thanks for being here. I'm Chris Johnson, the city clerk. So I will be the one working with anyone running for a seat with city council, making sure you have your forms submitted, verifying everything's there, and then communicating with you throughout the process. With me today is Bill Neri, city attorney. Bill's also a former city council member, and he'll be kind of speaking a little bit and answering any questions you may have. So thank you for being here. First, I want to point out this year we have 3 districts on the ballot, districts 1, 4, and 6. These are all going to be 4-year terms for city council, and those districts, we'll kind of talk about how you can determine what district you're in shortly. The candidate filing period this year begins August 18th at 8 a.m. and ends at 5 p.m. on August 29th. So that Monday through Friday, my office is open 8 to 5. It is just down the hall here in City Hall, 33 East Broadway, Suite 104. You just come in and we'll go over the paperwork you need to bring with you. We'll accept that paperwork here and make you a candidate. If you want to scan the QR code, you can do that. That'll take you to a page on our website that you can actually put in your address and verify which city council district you live in. Sorry, that was loud. Okay. Sorry, don't like these things. Okay, so kind of talk about what a city council member does and what those responsibilities are. I won't read to you, but essentially they are the one of the branches of the government for the city. They're the legislative branch, they're the Senate, they're the House of Representatives rolled into one. Their duties, require attending city council meetings. We do have 2 each of the first 4 Tuesdays of the month, as well as special meetings we have with other agencies and special meetings for special emergency reasons. Those meetings are held at 4:30. It's the work session, which is generally presentations, general city business, and then 6 p.m., which is more of the larger public interest topics, land use applications, discussing ordinances, changing rules and regulations of the city. They will also be assigned a department or 2 that they're liaison with, so they work with leadership in those departments, kind of help shape and guide what's going on in the city. And then they may also be appointed to different boards. I don't know how often we do that now, but they may be representing the city on different boards across the valley. City council members are compensated. It is really a part-time position, but they do a lot of work in that part-time. So they're compensated at the rate of $17,335 per year. It's payable over 12 months, paid monthly at the end of each month. And city council members have all of the same benefits of regular employees, with the exception of vacation and sick leave accrual, but there is medical insurance, dental insurance, I believe, public employee retirement as well.
Yes.
And I will let Bill address you kind of what it's like to be on council and his perspective as a city attorney.
And I can give you a little bit of experience from doing that. Set down a little bit, maybe it won't be quite so loud. I was on the city council for 3 years. Well, I didn't know if I could turn that down at all, but maybe if I put it down there. I was on the city council for 3 years, and like Chris said, it is the legislative body of the city. I've been the city attorney now for 21 years, so I've had a lot of time sitting up there with the council members or being a council member. And I'll tell you a personal note, my biggest value, I think, of being a city council member is providing that service back to the community. It really is a great opportunity to provide some insight and some input to how our community runs, how our community operates, what happens in our city, what things that are good and how you could improve and make this a better place to live for everybody. So there's a great value and a great reward for serving and doing that. Again, it's a challenge and it can be very different for a lot of folks. Everyone has their own experience. We again have various council members that some have full-time jobs, some have part-time jobs, some are stay-home parents, some are retired, so they've had a lot of life experiences that are different, and they bring that group together to help do the legislative, administrative stuff of the city, helping shape policy, help shaping our budgets, where we put our funds towards varieties of programs or projects within the city. and they take that collective group and help try to form all those things. Get on that side so I can change the slide. I got it. No biggie. This is back to some of what Chris does, but I can kind of give this to you. So again, there's candidates to file for a declaration of candidacy. So if you have questions about that, before we go on to the process, do you folks, anyone that's here, have questions about what's it like, or is it worth it, or is there what value or what interest you might have in serving? Do you have questions about that before we move on to the more specifics? Yes. So I didn't, that's a great question. So the question was, why did I only serve 3 years instead of the entire term? I left that position to take this job. So the opportunity to move from the council into this position as the city attorney was one that I felt was a great value to me, and I could be of good value to the city. And so I opted to resign before my term was up. They did appoint somebody then to replace and finish out my term, and that person then didn't run in the next election, but it came up in the next election for opening. But that was why. Other questions? Okay. Do you want to talk about that part? Okay.
Click back in, and I, again, apologize for the sound. We want to make sure we capture this for the video. So there's really, everyone that's going to run for election does have to file the declaration of candidacy. That is... Okay, so that's in a packet in the back. And there also goes with it a petition of candidacy, and you can do two things. You can get 5 signatures of qualified electors, including yourself, so four additional people to sign your form. It doesn't commit them to voting for you. They don't even have to live in the district. They just have to be a registered voter in the city of Meridian. Get those signatures, and then you take those to Ada County Elections. They review it and then certify that they are meeting the requirement, and then you bring that back to this office. Option B is to just pay a filing fee and avoid getting the signatures. The signatures are pretty quick and simple, but if you want to avoid that, you can pay the filing fee, but your status as a qualified candidate still has to go through Ada County.
I'm going to add one little point onto that with what Chris said, since some of the folks that might be watching this may not be here to ask a question. As Chris stated, your people that, if you decide to use a petition for candidacy, the people that sign it need to be qualified electors. If you want to run for city council, though, you need to be a qualified elector, and you must live in the district that you're running in. So only slight difference. So the candidacy can be signed by anybody as long as you're a qualified elector. You don't have to live in your district, but to run, you do have to live in the district.
A lot of words on a small screen, but basically you have to meet these qualifications. You have to be at least 18 years old at the time of your filing. You do have to be a U.S. citizen. You have to reside within the city of Meridian for at least 30 days prior to the time of filing, and you have to be registered to vote at the address listed on your declaration. There are some caveats there. You may change your voter registration to update your address prior to filing. So if you've lived in Meridian 30 or more days, but you are relocating, at the time of filing, you have to live in the district, but you can have just moved to the district as long as you're within Meridian 30 days prior to that. We changed some of this today, so you do have to have proof of residency when you do that, so however you prove that, and then it has to be the same as any household exemption you're collecting. So if you own multiple houses, the house where you claim the exemption is the house you're living at for consideration of what district you live in. Anything to add to that? Okay. Kind of a busy slide there. We used to do campaign finance reporting at the city level. Now it is actually done through the Secretary of State. There is a link there. It will be on our website, and it's also on the Idaho Secretary of State's website and the Ada County Elections website. But anybody who is raising or spending more than $500 has to do the campaign finance reporting. And that that link on the link on the page and the QR code will take you to that website. Ready to go? Oh, sorry. Correct, yeah, the candidate can be their own treasurer. Great question. So again, we kind of went over this briefly, but the petition for candidacy is the form you complete rather than paying the $45 filing fee. You do have to get 5 qualified electors. So again, anybody who is a registered voter in the city of Meridian, any district. Again, have to be 18 years old, a U.S. citizen, resident in Meridian, registered voter. Somebody can sign multiple petitions. So if someone comes to you and says, will you sign my petition for candidacy? You can sign more than one. It just basically says, I'm not even sure what the requirement is with that. It basically just says, I agree you should run for office. Doesn't mean I'm going to vote for you, but you should run. And you can sign your own petition. We do recommend getting more than 5 because somebody may have a Meridian address but not be a Meridian resident. They may be in Ada County. Somebody may have been, not voted in however many years and removed from the voter rolls. So it's just good to get more than 5. It's pretty easy to get those signatures, and that way you don't find out when you go to Ada County to get them verified that you only have 4 signatures, and now you have to just, spend time getting a 5th signature.
And one of the things Chris has mentioned it a couple times, and the one that does trip up people more than once is that last point. People sometimes will think, I voted the last time, or I haven't changed anything since I voted before. But you may have moved. Something may have changed, whether it's you or the person that signed those petitions of candidacy. Something could have changed where they lived, or something, or their name may have changed, or something else. So again, if they don't match, then they won't accept it. Same thing if you sign it or you fill out the candidacy one and it doesn't match where it says you live, then you're going to have to make sure your voter registration is updated. So you just want to make sure all of those things are aligned because you don't want to get down to the last day at 5 o'clock when this has to be done and you're one name short or your address is incorrect or something else has to be corrected. So make sure to take care of all those things before the deadline.
And then, of course, the declaration of candidacy is in that packet on our website, also on the Ada County Elections website. And that is essentially declaring that you are seeking election and want your name on the ballot. That will also allow us to verify your address against the voter registration to make sure you meet those requirements. On that form, you're acknowledging that you're aware of the campaign finance rules that you do have to file if you meet that $500 threshold. Certifying that the information is true and accurate, and the form also must be notarized. So when you sign that form, you do have to do it with a notary. Every one in my office, or most people in my office are notaries, so if you're bringing that form in, we can notarize it for you when you file it. But you can certainly get it notarized elsewhere as well. Write-in candidates. So this kind of baffled me when I first started working in this area, but a write-in candidate does have to officially declare that they're a write-in candidate. So we don't count votes for Mickey Mouse. This is really a case if somebody decides they want to run after the window is closed. For whatever reason, they don't want their name on the ballot, or maybe they turned 18 after that August 29th deadline, but now they're eligible. So that's why we have the write-in candidate option. They do not pay a filing fee. They just submit that declaration of candidacy. And then the deadline for them is September 5th. So if you're considering being a write-in candidate for whatever reason, September 5th would be your deadline to submit that declaration to my office. That's a great question. The form is online, but it is a paper form that still has to be submitted. So you have to bring in the paper form. Yep. Should, for whatever reason, you put your name on the ballot, then decide you no longer want to run. Once September 5th hits, the ballot is essentially going to print at that point, so you cannot have your name removed or changed on the ballot. Hopefully nobody files for candidacy, then changes their mind that quickly. But if something were to happen, maybe you had to move suddenly, just change of heart, you don't want to do that, you will still appear on the ballot if you don't withdraw by September 5th. Kind of go over some questions you may or may not ask. Just going to answer them ahead of time, and then we'll answer other things as well. So we often get asked about campaign signs. So general rules are there. You cannot place it on public or private property without permission. You cannot put any signage on city-owned property, so city parks, city hall, anything like that. And then general rule, if a public utility, let's say Idaho Power says you can post something on their property, then they're giving permission to everyone. They can't, being a public entity, they cannot say only you can advertise here. I do have a handout on the back, and it is on the website, or sorry, it's not on the website, it's on Ada County Highway District's website. There are their general rules of where you can place signs, so how close to an intersection they can be, places they can and can't be, and then their process for removing them. And then we also have, I think the next slide may have an electioneering boundary. There is not, but there is a law, essentially you can't campaign within so many feet of a polling place. City Hall is a polling place for early voting and on Election Day. So we have a map later in the presentation that talks about where you can campaign, which also I think would include where you can place signs, although most of it's city property, so you couldn't anyway. Yep.
Correct. Oh, the other thing I would add on to what Chris said about signage, do not assume, because other people have signs there, that you're okay other than the ones that are public property, like a utility. Because if you put it incorrectly or improperly, especially if it's private property, they will normally just remove them. They may call you, they may not. They may let you know, or they may not. All these signs cost money. And you don't want them taking your sign and throwing it away and getting rid of it without you knowing. So, we will try to call you if you were to put them on city property, or one of the people that's supporting you inadvertently puts it on city property. We will try to reach out to you to say, we took it down, but you can come get it. Well, we're not going to throw it away right away, but most of the other ones will, especially if it's on private property. So make sure you have permission. Again, all of those things cost money. You don't want to waste your time and money. Yes, ma'am.
How normal does the permission have to be? Is it by form? Does it have to be a physical approval? What's that?
Well, there is, whatever that property owner is comfortable with. I mean, email is certainly fine. We're not going to police it unless we receive a complaint. I think there's a slide about complaints later. We don't normally police that on private property. On city property, again, you won't get permission from the city to do that, so you don't have to worry about that. On private property, here's the question that will come up, has come up occasionally over time. Many properties are also managed by a property management company. So it may be owned and you got permission from the owner, but the owner also has a company that manages their property for them. Make sure they let them know, because oftentimes they don't always know, and all they've been instructed oftentimes is to take them down. And so you want to make sure, if you do get permission, not just that you get it in writing, but that you have some way to make sure that tell the owner, you have a property management company, you can be sure to let them know. I don't want them to remove it, so that way you don't, again, waste your time and money. I can talk about the next one. So the next slide talks about term limits. There are no term limits in Idaho for city council. That was repealed back in the early 2000s. So there are no restriction on the number of terms that you can run or be elected to the city council. Again, that's really up to the voters and your desire. So that's up to you.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you. I put another microphone there in case you get more feedback. As far as naming on the ballot, you do not have to have what is formal on your ID. You would just put it how you want it to appear. So if you're named Margaret on your ID, your friends call you Maggie, and you want to run as Maggie, you can do that. It will appear exactly as it is on the Declaration of Candidacy. So file that as you wish it to be on the ballot. Thank you. As far as I kind of covered this already, who can notarize your declaration, that can be done by my office or any other notary in the state of Idaho, sorry. Idaho, the right state that time. And then this kind of gets to what I kind of jumped ahead to earlier, campaigning on election day. So yes, you can campaign on election day. You just may not campaign within 100 feet of a polling place, regardless of where it is, or even if it's public or private property. So any polling place within 100 feet, you cannot campaign. We do have a map on our website, I think as well as in the presentation, that shows you where 100 feet is from City Hall, our polling place in the lobby here, and our early voting drop box.
To add on to that, most of the other places, depending on where the polls are, usually you're probably using some kind of online feature that can figure out what that distance is. Many of them, again, aren't going to have anything, a map necessarily for their location. But since there are a lot of online tools that are available, you just need to be outside of that. Again, if we have complaints, I think we have a slide later about complaints, we will investigate to determine if that's the case. I've never seen it happen more than inadvertent, and usually it hasn't been, for very long. Usually once people are aware you have to move a little bit further or a different location, most people will.
So this is the map. This is on our website, but gives you a general idea of what 100 feet is from a polling place. So this shows the location of our early voting drop box, as well as City Hall, which is, as I said, a polling place for early voting and Election Day voting. And you may have a Meridian address, but not be a Meridian resident. We call that the area of impact. So somebody living in the area of impact does not vote in city elections because they are not city resident and do not have a city council district representative. You can check that on our website where we look at what district you are. Someone can also look at their property tax bill and see if they're taxed by the city of Meridian. If they are not, then they are not a Meridian resident. Oh, and if you're in doubt, you can verify your address with Ada County Elections as well. If you do not live in District 1, 4, or 6, you are not going to see a district election on your ballot. Districts 2, 3, and 5 will be up for election in the next cycle, which is in November of 2027. However, everyone will see a levy on their ballot, and we'll talk about that briefly in a moment. Term of office begins the first city council meeting in January. Generally, it's the first Tuesday of the month. Sometimes there are changes to that. Very, very rarely, but I will keep in communication with those elected to office to arrange for your first meeting and your swearing in. It's anticipated to be January 6th, 2026. And then as far as complaints, if you want to file a complaint about another candidate or a political action committee, anything like that, complaints can be made in writing to the city clerk's office, mailed, emailed, or delivered in person. The address is on my card in the back. If you're watching online, it's 33 East Broadway, Meridian, Idaho 83642. All complaints are investigated by myself and the city attorney. And when you are filing a complaint, give as much information as possible, who, what, when, where, why, as well as how we can get a hold of you during our investigation. I don't know that I've ever had an investigation. I don't know if you have.
What I would say is we've had occasional complaints. Usually the complaints are a couple things, either signage, that happens occasionally. Again, oftentimes we'll determine if the signage is in a place that is not supposed to be or without permission. We usually will ask the candidate to move it. Sometimes it's regarding some of the written material. Again, we don't judge the content of written material, whether or not you agree or disagree with the content. We're looking for the things that are legally required. Is there an attribution to who prepared it? Who paid for it? Who provided it? Those are the things we're looking for. Certain things, and they're all in this Idaho code, don't require that. And easiest way I try to tell people is things that are too small to try to print. Whitlock problem tonight. The things that are too small to print something on. Generally things that are too small to print something on. Pencils, squeeze balls, things that are very small generally don't require it. But most things are. Any written material, flyers, door hangers, mailers, those types of things generally are going to require attribution. Again, who paid for it? Where did it come from? Where's it? Who's responsible for it? That is required. We will investigate. We have had occasional reasons to look into those things. Not very often. Again, most times people are pretty good about that. Again, it costs a lot of money and time. I certainly wouldn't want to encourage anybody to spend their money and not follow the rules and have spent a lot of money on something they can't use.
Thank you. There will be a question on everyone's ballot regarding a public safety levy. Just informing you that that is there. So if you are running for office or even just as a voter, it's something you can read more about on the website, and there is the QR code there as well. It's very visible at meridiancity.org. If you don't see it there, just search the word levy in the search, and you'll find more information about what that public safety levy ballot question is about. And this slide just has the contact information for me, and the address, phone number, and email address. And then our City Attorney Bill Nary's information is there as well. We're happy to answer any questions you have tonight or in the future regarding City Council elections 2025. So I know it's a full house, so we'll try to get to everyone's questions, but any questions you have for us this evening? Well, yes?
So are you supposed to report which party you are
Great.
part of, or main party or independent?
Great question. So the question, if you didn't hear, was asked, do you have to indicate which political party, if any, you are representing or affiliated with? Now, city council elections are nonpartisan, so there are, it is not, I mean, you certainly can say it if you want, but it's not, we don't vote by party. There's no like primary election, anything like that. General election, anybody who registers is on the ballot. Great question. Thank you.
And probably the one question maybe isn't asked, but probably the one area that people can trip up the most is the campaign financing requirements and the reporting requirements. So if you do raise money and you are spending money for a campaign, besides the campaign treasurer, there are deadlines and requirements that you must file with the Secretary of State. So we don't track that, but they do, and there are requirements you need to meet. So I would suggest anybody running for office, make sure you understand what those requirements are. If you're going to be your own treasurer or you're going to have a treasurer do it for you, make sure they understand or you understand what those rules are and that you follow those. That's the one area that can be confusing to some folks or can sometimes be very misunderstood, and those where people make the most error. So be familiar with that. Make sure you meet those deadlines, meet those requirements that are necessary. That's the one area that we don't necessarily from the city can advise you about, and we don't look into, but you do need to follow those rules and understand what they are.
Can it be clarified, is it raising and spending $500, or no, as long as you spend $500, whether you raise it or you use your personal money, you have to?
I believe it is raising or spending, so at any point you're reaching
Yeah.
$500 in either or both together. You would register. Yeah.
You can spend all your own money and nobody else's money, but you still need to report it. Other questions?
Any other okay. Well, we will stick around for a bit. If you have any other questions, we can answer those informally. But otherwise, feel free to contact my office with any questions as they come up. We do our best to answer those right away. We look forward to seeing you between August 18th and August 29th for your filing. Thank you.
Thank you.